The mop hit the floor with a wet slap as Marcus pushed it across the hallway. It was 7 in the morning and the community center was quiet. Marcus liked the quiet. He had worked as a janitor here for 12 years now. Every morning was the same. Clean the floors. Empty the trash. Wipe down the tables. Check the bathrooms. Lock up the storage rooms. Marcus was 62 years old. His back hurt most days, but he never complained. He had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. His hair was gray and cut short. He wore the same navy blue uniform every day with his name stitched on the pocket. Most people walked past him without looking. That was fine with Marcus. He did not need attention. The community center was an old building in the heart of the city. It had been there for almost 50 years. The paint on the walls was starting to peel. The carpet in the main room had stains that would never come out. But the people in the neighborhood loved this place. It was where kids came after school, where seniors played cards on Tuesday afternoons, where families held birthday parties and community meetings. On this particular morning, Marcus had a special job. Helen, the center's director, had asked him to clean out the storage room in the basement. Nobody had been down there in years. The room was full of old furniture, broken chairs, boxes of papers, and things that nobody wanted anymore. Marcus grabbed his keys and headed down the narrow staircase. The steps creaked under his weight. The basement smelled like dust and old wood. He flipped on the light switch and a single bulb flickered to life. The storage room was even messier than he expected. Boxes were stacked to the ceiling. Old folding tables leaned against the walls. There were broken sports equipment, rusty filing cabinets, and piles of moth-eaten curtains. Marcus sighed. This was going to take all day. He started pulling boxes out into the hallway. Most of them were full of papers from events that happened decades ago. Some had old decorations for holidays. Others had supplies that were no longer useful. Marcus sorted everything into piles, keep, throw away, maybe useful. After 2 hours of work, Marcus moved a large bookshelf away from the back wall. That was when he saw it, an upright piano. It was pushed into the corner, hidden behind years of junk. The wood was dark brown, almost black. Dust covered every surface. Spiderwebs stretched from the top of the piano to the wall. Someone had thrown an old tablecloth over the keys. Marcus stopped moving. He stared at the piano. His heart started beating faster. His hands felt cold. He had not seen a piano in a very long time. Not up close like this. Slowly, Marcus walked over to it. He reached out and touched the wood. The dust came off on his fingers. He pulled away the tablecloth. The keys were yellow with age. Some were chipped. A few were stuck down and would not come back up. Marcus pulled over an old metal chair and sat down in front of the piano. He did not touch the keys. He just looked at them. Memories flooded his mind. Memories he had buried deep down for many, many years. He remembered his grandmother's piano. It had looked just like this one. Old and worn, but beautiful in its own way. Marcus shook his head. He stood up quickly and walked away from the piano. He had work to do. No time for memories. For the rest of the day, Marcus tried to focus on cleaning, but his eyes kept drifting back to the piano in the corner. It seemed to watch him while he worked. By 5 o'clock, the other staff members started arriving for the evening programs. Marcus was carrying boxes up the stairs when he heard voices. "What is all this junk?" someone said. Marcus looked up. It was Derek, one of the young recreation coordinators. He was 25 years old and always wore expensive sneakers. He thought he was better than everyone else. "Just cleaning out the storage room," Marcus said quietly. Derek peered down the stairs. "About time. That room has been a mess forever. Is there anything good down there?" "Just old furniture mostly," Marcus replied. Another staff member, Jessica, joined Derek at the top of the stairs. She was looking at her phone, barely paying attention. "Did you find that old piano?" she asked. "Helen said there was a piano down there somewhere." "Yes, it is there," Marcus said. Derek laughed. "That piece of junk? I saw it last year when I was looking for extra chairs. It is completely worthless. Half the keys do not even work." "Probably full of mice," Jessica added, making a disgusted face. "Helen wants to throw it out next month," Derek said. "We need the space for new storage shelves. Nobody plays piano anymore anyway. Everything is digital now." Marcus said nothing. He just nodded and continued carrying the boxes upstairs. That evening, after everyone else went home, Marcus went back down to the basement. He told himself he just needed to finish organizing. But he knew the truth. He wanted to see the piano again. He stood in front of it for a long time. The storage room was silent except for the hum of the old furnace in the next room. Marcus thought about what Derek had said. Worthless, piece of junk. Maybe they were right. It was just an old piano. It probably could not even be tuned anymore. The wood was damaged. The keys were broken, but it was still a piano. Marcus reached out and pressed one key. The sound that came out was dull and flat, out of tune, just as he expected. He pressed another key, then another. Each one sounded worse than the last. He pulled his hand back. What was he doing? He had not played piano in over 40 years. He was a janitor. This was not his world anymore. Marcus covered the keys back up with the tablecloth. He turned off the light and went home, but that night he could not sleep. He kept thinking about the piano, about the way the keys felt under his fingers even for just those few seconds, about the sound even though it was wrong and out of tune. Over the next week, Marcus found excuses to go down to the storage room. He would tell himself he needed to organize one more box, check one more corner, move one more piece of furniture. But really, he just wanted to be near the piano. He started cleaning it, just a little bit each day. He wiped the dust off the wood. He cleaned the spider webs. He gently cleaned each key with a soft cloth. He was careful not to press them down. He did not want to hear those broken sounds again. The other staff members did not pay much attention. They walked past the basement stairs every day, talking about their own lives, their problems, their plans. One afternoon, Marcus overheard Derek and two other young staff members talking in the break room. "Did you see Marcus polishing that old piano?" One of them said. "Why is he wasting his time?" Derek snorted. "Maybe he thinks he is going to play it." Can you imagine? The old janitor sitting down at that broken piano trying to play music? They all laughed. "I bet he does not even know how to play," Jessica said. "He probably just likes having something to do." You know how old people are. They get attached to weird things. Helen said she is calling the junk removal company next week, Derek announced. "That piano will be gone soon." "Good riddance. It is just taking up space we need." Marcus stood outside the break room door. They did not know he was there. He felt his face grow hot. His chest felt tight. He walked away quietly like he always did. That night, Marcus lay in his small apartment staring at the ceiling. His apartment was simple. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room with an old couch and a television that barely worked. The walls were bare except for one photograph. It showed a young boy, maybe 8 years old, sitting at a piano. The boy was smiling. That boy was Marcus. 54 years ago. Marcus closed his eyes. He could still remember that day. His grandmother had been so proud. She had saved money for months to buy a camera just to take that picture. He thought about the piano in the basement. In 1 week it would be gone. Thrown away, destroyed. Just like his dreams had been thrown away all those years ago, Marcus made a decision. Tomorrow he would go down to that basement. He would sit at that piano, and he would press the keys. Not to make music. He knew it would sound terrible. But just to remember. One last time. Before the piano was gone forever. Before that part of his past disappeared completely. Marcus did not know it yet, but that decision would change everything. Marcus was born in a small town in Mississippi in 1963. The town was so small it did not even have a traffic light. Everyone knew everyone. Most families were poor, but they helped each other. They shared food. They watched each other's children. They went to church together every Sunday. Marcus lived with his grandmother in a tiny house at the end of a dirt road. The house had 3 rooms and a porch that leaned to one side. The roof leaked when it rained. In winter, cold air came through cracks in the walls. But it was home. Marcus's mother had left when he was 2 years old. Nobody talked about where she went or why. His father was never in the picture. Marcus did not remember either of them. The only mother he ever knew was his grandmother, Sarah. Sarah was a strong woman. She was only 50 years old, but life had made her look older. She worked as a cook at the elementary school during the week. On weekends, she cleaned houses for the white families on the other side of town. Her hands were rough and scarred from years of hard work. But Sarah had one treasure, one beautiful thing in her hard life, a piano. It sat in the front room of their small house. The wood was scratched and faded. Some of the keys stuck. The bench wobbled. But to Sarah, it was the most precious thing she owned. She had bought it 15 years earlier before Marcus was born. She had saved every extra penny for 2 years. The piano cost $300. That was more money than Sarah had ever spent on anything except the house itself. People in town thought she was crazy. Why would a poor woman waste money on a piano? You cannot eat a piano. A piano does not keep you warm. A piano does not pay bills. But Sarah knew something they did not understand. Music could feed your soul when your stomach was empty. Music could warm your heart when your body was cold. Music could make a hard life feel worth living. Sarah had learned to play piano as a young girl. Her own mother had worked as a maid for a wealthy family, and they had let Sarah come to their house sometimes. The family's daughter took piano lessons, and when she was done practicing, Sarah was allowed to touch the keys. Sarah learned by watching and listening. She taught herself to play. She was never formally trained. She could not read music perfectly, but her fingers knew what to do. She could play church hymns, old blues songs and melodies that she made up in her own head. When Marcus was 4 years old, Sarah started teaching him to play. At first it was just a game. She would play a note and Marcus would copy it. She would play 2 notes and he would copy those, then 3 notes, then 4. Marcus loved the game. He loved the sounds the piano made. He loved the way his grandmother smiled when he got it right. By the time Marcus was 5, he could play simple songs. By age 6, he could play anything his grandmother played. He would watch her fingers, and then his small hands would do the same movements. But then something amazing happened. Marcus started to play things his grandmother had never taught him. He would sit at the piano by himself and create music. His fingers would move across the keys, finding notes that sounded good together, finding rhythms that made sense. Sarah realized her grandson had a gift. When Marcus was 7, a music teacher from the city came to their town. She was visiting the church to help train the choir. Her name was Mrs. Patterson. She was an older white woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. After church one Sunday, Sarah approached her nervously. "Excuse me, ma'am," Sarah said, her voice quiet. "My grandson, he plays piano. Would you listen to him play? Just for a minute?" Mrs. Patterson looked doubtful. She had heard many children play piano. Most of them were barely adequate. But something in Sarah's eyes made her agree. "Very well," she said. "But just for a minute. I have to get back to the city." Sarah brought Marcus to the church. The old piano there was even worse than the one at home. Several keys did not work at all. But Marcus sat down on the bench, his feet dangling above the pedals because he was too short to reach them. He started to play. Mrs. Patterson's expression changed immediately. Her eyes went wide. She stepped closer to the piano. Marcus played a hymn first. Then he played a piece by Mozart that he had heard on the radio and memorized. Then he played something he had made up himself, a sad melody that sounded like rain falling. When he finished, Mrs. Patterson was silent for a long moment. "How long have you been taking lessons?" she finally asked. "He has never had a lesson, ma'am," Sarah said. "I taught him some basics, but mostly he just plays." Mrs. Patterson shook her head in disbelief. "This child is extraordinarily talented. He needs proper training, real lessons with a qualified teacher." Sarah's heart sank. She knew what that meant, money. Money she did not have. "I would be willing to teach him myself," Mrs. Patterson said. "Free of charge. I have never seen a child with this much natural ability. It would be a crime not to nurture it." Sarah started to cry. She could not help it. This was an answer to prayers she had been too afraid to even pray. For the next 6 years, Marcus studied with Mrs. Patterson. Every Saturday, Sarah would drive their old car 40 minutes to the city. Marcus would have a 2-hour lesson. Then they would drive 40 minutes back home. Mrs. Patterson taught Marcus everything. She taught him to read music properly. She taught him classical technique. She taught him about the great composers, Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, Brahms. But she also encouraged Marcus to keep creating his own music. She recognized that his original compositions were special. They blended the classical training with the blues and gospel he heard at home. They had soul. Marcus practiced every single day. Before school, after school, on weekends. His fingers flew across the keys. The music poured out of him like water from a spring. By the time Marcus was 13, he was winning every competition he entered. First place at the county fair. First place at the State Youth Music Festival. First place at the regional piano competition. People came from other towns to hear the young boy who could play like a professional. The local newspaper wrote an article about him. The headline read, "Musical prodigy found in unlikely place." Marcus's dream was to go to Juilliard, the famous music school in New York. Mrs. Patterson told him he was good enough. With his talent and her recommendation, he could get in, maybe even get a scholarship. Sarah worked extra hours to start saving money. Even with a scholarship, there would be costs: travel, books, living expenses. She cleaned more houses. She took a second job washing dishes at a restaurant in the evenings. Marcus practiced even harder. He was going to make it. He was going to be a concert pianist. He was going to play in great halls all around the world. He was going to make his grandmother proud. Everything was going according to plan. But life does not always go according to plan. When Marcus was 17, Sarah got sick. At first, she said it was just a cold. Then she said it was just tiredness from working too much. But Marcus noticed she was losing weight. She was coughing all the time. She had no energy. Finally, Marcus convinced her to see a doctor. The news was devastating. Cancer? Stage 4. It had spread everywhere. The doctor said there were treatments, but they were expensive. Sarah's job at the school provided minimal insurance. It would not cover everything. Not even close. Sarah refused treatment. "That money is for your education," she told Marcus. "I am not spending it on myself." Marcus tried to argue. He begged her to get help. But Sarah was stubborn. She had made up her mind. Instead, Marcus made his own decision. He dropped out of high school. He got a job at a factory that made car parts. The work was hard and the pay was low, but it was better than nothing. He used every penny he earned to try to make his grandmother comfortable. He bought her medicine for the pain. He bought her soft blankets. He bought her the food she liked, even though she barely ate anything. Mrs. Patterson came to visit. She brought college applications for Marcus to fill out. She said he could still apply to Juilliard. He could defer for a year, take care of his grandmother, and then go to school. But Marcus knew the truth. There would be no Juilliard. There would be no music school. Those dreams belonged to a different life. Sarah died on a cold morning in February. Marcus held her hand as she took her last breath. She was only 65 years old. The funeral was small. People from church came. Mrs. Patterson came. Some of Sarah's friends from town came. After everyone left, Marcus sat alone in the house. He looked at the piano. He sat down and tried to play, but his fingers would not move. It was like they had forgotten everything they ever knew. He tried again the next day, and the next, but every time he touched the keys, all he felt was pain. The music reminded him of his grandmother, of everything he had lost, of the future that would never happen. After a week, Marcus stopped trying. He sold the piano to a family in the next town. He needed money for food and rent. The piano brought in $200, less than Sarah had paid for it all those years ago. Marcus never went back to high school. He worked at the factory for 2 more years. Then he moved to the city looking for better opportunities. He worked construction. He worked in warehouses. He worked as a security guard. He worked as a cook. He took any job he could find. The years passed. Marcus moved from city to city, job to job. He never stayed anywhere too long. He never made close friends. He kept to himself. He never touched a piano again. Not once in 45 years. Marcus could not stop thinking about the piano. It was like a voice in his head that would not be quiet. Every day at work, he found himself walking past the basement stairs, looking down, wondering. 1 week had passed since he first found it. The piano was clean now. Marcus had spent hours wiping every surface, polishing the wood, cleaning each key. It looked better. Still old, still damaged, but cared for. He had not played it. He had not pressed the keys except for that first day when he heard those terrible, out-of-tune sounds, but he thought about it constantly. At night, in his small apartment, Marcus would lie in bed and imagine sitting at the piano. He would imagine his fingers moving across the keys. He would imagine the music flowing out. But then fear would grip his chest and he would push the thoughts away. What if his fingers did not remember? What if 45 years had erased everything he once knew? It was Thursday evening. Marcus had just finished his regular shift. It was 6 o'clock. The community center was starting to fill up with people coming for evening programs. Kids ran through the hallways, their voices echoing off the walls. Adults gathered in the meeting rooms talking and laughing. Marcus put away his cleaning supplies in the janitor's closet. He hung up his uniform. He was ready to go home, but his feet would not move toward the exit. Instead, they carried him to the basement stairs. Marcus looked around. Nobody was paying attention to him. Everyone was busy with their own activities. He walked down the stairs quietly. The basement was dim and cool. The storage room was exactly as he had left it. The piano sat in the corner, waiting. Marcus stood in the doorway for a long time. His heart was beating fast. His palms were sweating. He checked his watch. 6:15. The center would be busy upstairs for hours. The evening programs did not end until 9 o'clock. Nobody would come down here. Nobody would hear. Marcus took a deep breath. He walked to the piano. He pulled over the old metal chair and sat down. His hands were shaking. Slowly, carefully, he lifted the cover from the keys. The yellow keys stared back at him like old teeth. Marcus raised his hands. He held them over the keys, not touching. Not yet. Memories flooded through him. He remembered his grandmother's hands guiding his small fingers. He remembered Mrs. Patterson's strict voice correcting his posture. He remembered the feel of the smooth keys beneath his fingertips when he was a boy. Could he still do it? After all these years? There was only one way to find out. Marcus placed his fingers on the keys. The position came back naturally, like his hands remembered even though his mind was not sure. His thumb on C. His other fingers spread across the white keys. He pressed down. The sound that came out was terrible. Out of tune, flat, wrong. Marcus winced. But he did not stop. He began to play a simple scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Each note sounded wrong. The piano was badly out of tune. Some notes were sharp. Some were flat. Some barely made any sound at all. But Marcus kept going. He played the scale again and again. His fingers were stiff at first. Awkward. They stumbled over keys they used to know so well. But slowly, muscle memory began to wake up. His fingers started moving more smoothly. They started finding the right keys without him having to think about it. The movements that had been drilled into him as a child were still there, buried deep in his body. Marcus closed his eyes. He began to play a hymn. Amazing Grace. It was one of the first songs his grandmother taught him. Even through the terrible, out-of-tune notes, the melody emerged. Marcus could hear it in his mind the way it was supposed to sound. Beautiful. Clear. Perfect. Tears started rolling down his cheeks. He did not try to stop them. He played another song. And another. His fingers gained confidence. They moved faster. They pressed harder. Marcus lost track of time. He played every song he could remember from his childhood. Church hymns. Old blues songs. Simple pieces by the great composers. Then, without planning to, his fingers began playing something else. Something he had not thought about in decades. It was one of his own compositions. A piece he had written when he was 16 years old. He had called it Sarah's Song after his grandmother. The melody came back to him note by note. It was a sad song, a beautiful song. It had sections that were soft and gentle like a lullaby, and sections that were powerful and strong like a storm. Even on this broken, out-of-tune piano, the music had power. It filled the small storage room. It poured out of Marcus like water that had been dammed up for too long. He played the entire piece from beginning to end. 7 minutes of music that he had written as a teenager and had not thought about in 45 years. When he finished, Marcus sat in silence. His hands rested on the keys. His face was wet with tears. For the first time in decades, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Joy. Pure, simple joy. He could still play. His fingers remembered. The music was still inside him. Marcus looked at his watch. It was 7:30. He had been playing for over an hour. He stood up, his legs stiff from sitting. He covered the keys again with the cloth. He looked at the piano for a long moment. "Thank you," he whispered. He did not know if he was talking to the piano, or to his grandmother, or to God, or to music itself. Marcus went upstairs. The hallways were still full of people. Nobody noticed him leaving. He walked to his car in the parking lot. He drove home. That night, he slept better than he had in years. The next morning, Marcus woke up early. His fingers were sore. There were small indentations on his fingertips from pressing the keys. He smiled. He had forgotten about that. After playing for a long time, your fingers always hurt a little. He went to work as usual. He cleaned the floors. He emptied the trash. He wiped down the tables. But everything felt different now. Lighter. Brighter. That evening, Marcus went back to the basement. And he played again. This became his routine. Every evening after his shift, he would go down to the storage room. He would sit at the old piano. And he would play. Sometimes he played for 30 minutes. Sometimes for 2 hours. He played everything he remembered. And he started creating new music too. His fingers were getting stronger. More flexible. The stiffness was going away. He was remembering techniques he thought he had forgotten. On the 5th evening, something unexpected happened. Marcus was playing a complicated piece by Chopin. His eyes were closed. He was completely absorbed in the music. He did not hear the footsteps on the stairs. He did not hear the door open wider. He did not know that someone was standing in the doorway listening. Helen, the center's director, had come downstairs to look for some old files. She needed records from 10 years ago for a grant application. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, she heard music. At first, she thought someone was playing a radio. But no, this was live music. Piano music, coming from the storage room. Helen walked quietly toward the sound. She peeked through the doorway. What she saw made her stop breathing. It was Marcus, the janitor, sitting at the old piano, playing the most beautiful music she had ever heard. His fingers moved across the keys with incredible speed and precision. Even though the piano was out of tune, she could hear the skill, the artistry, the passion. This was not someone who just knew how to play a little. This was a real pianist, a trained musician. Helen stood frozen in the doorway. She did not want to interrupt. She did not want this moment to end. Marcus played for another 10 minutes. Helen listened to every note. She watched his hands dance across the keys. She saw the expression on his face. Complete concentration. Complete peace. Finally, Marcus finished the piece. He opened his eyes. He took a deep breath. Then he saw Helen standing there. Marcus jumped up from the chair. His face turned red. He looked terrified. "I am sorry," he said quickly. "I am sorry. I should not be down here. Helen held up her hand. "Marcus, stop. You do not need to apologize." She walked into the room. She looked at him with new eyes. "How long have you been able to play like that?" Marcus looked down at the floor. "A long time ago. I have not played in many years. I found this piano and I could not help myself." "That was incredible," Helen said softly. "Marcus, you are incredibly talented. Why did you never tell anyone you could play?" Marcus shrugged. "It is not important. It is just something I used to do. A long time ago. Not important?" Helen shook her head. "Marcus, that was one of the most beautiful things I have ever heard. And that piano is terribly out of tune. Imagine what you could do on a properly tuned instrument." Marcus did not know what to say. He felt embarrassed. Exposed. Like someone had discovered a secret he had been trying to keep hidden. Helen sat down on an old box. "Will you tell me about it? About how you learned to play?" Marcus hesitated. He never talked about his past. Never told anyone about his grandmother or his dreams or the life he almost had. But something about Helen's kind face made him want to talk. So he did. He told her everything. About growing up in Mississippi. About his grandmother and her piano. About Mrs. Patterson and the lessons. About the competitions and the dreams of Juilliard. About his grandmother getting sick. About selling the piano and never playing again. Helen listened to every word. When he finished, there were tears in her eyes. "Marcus," she said, "I had no idea. All these years I have worked with you and I never knew any of this." "It is okay," Marcus said. "I do not talk about it. It hurts too much." "But you are playing again now," Helen pointed out. Marcus nodded. "I saw this piano and I had to. I do not know why. Maybe I just needed to know if I still could." Helen stood up. "I am so glad you did. Marcus, this is a gift. What you have, it is a gift. You should not keep it hidden." Marcus shook his head. "It is too late for me. I am 62 years old. That life is gone." "It is never too late for music," Helen said firmly. "Never." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Helen made a decision. a decision that would change everything. But she did not tell Marcus yet. Not until she was sure she could make it happen. Word travels fast in a small community center. By Monday morning, everyone on the staff knew that Marcus could play piano. Helen had not meant to spread the news. She had only mentioned it to her assistant Karen in confidence. But Karen told someone else, and that person told someone else. And by lunchtime it was the topic of conversation in the break room. Marcus arrived for his afternoon shift at 1 o'clock. He did not know that people had been talking about him. He went to the janitor's closet to get his supplies just like he did every day. In the break room, 5 staff members sat around the table eating lunch. Derek was there, along with Jessica, Tom from the sports program, and 2 part-time workers named Amanda and Chris. "I heard Marcus can play piano," Amanda said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "Is that true?" "Apparently," Derek said, rolling his eyes. "Helen caught him playing in the basement. She said he was pretty good." "Pretty good?" Jessica laughed. "Come on. He is a 60-year-old janitor. How good could he really be?" "Maybe he took lessons when he was a kid," Tom suggested. "Lots of people take piano lessons." "Yeah, for like a year when they are 8 years old," Derek said. "Then they quit because it is boring. I bet Marcus can play chopsticks and that is about it." They all laughed. Marcus was walking past the break room at that exact moment. The door was open. He heard every word. He stopped walking. His hands gripped the handle of his mop bucket. His face felt hot. He should have kept going. Should have ignored them. But his feet would not move. "Helen is probably exaggerating," Chris said. "You know how she is. She sees the good in everyone. Marcus probably just played Mary Had a Little Lamb and she thought it was amazing." More laughter. "I would pay to see him try to play something actually difficult," Derek said. "Can you imagine? Old Marcus sitting at that broken piano trying to play Beethoven or something? That would be hilarious." Jessica nearly choked on her coffee from laughing. "Stop, you are killing me." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. He quietly walked away before anyone saw him. He went to the bathroom and locked himself in a stall. He sat there for 10 minutes trying to calm down. Why did their words hurt so much? Why did he care what they thought? Because deep down a part of him was afraid they were right. Afraid that he was just a foolish old man, clinging to dreams from half a century ago. Afraid that whatever skill he once had was gone now. Marcus finished his shift that day in silence. He avoided everyone. He kept his head down and did his work. That evening, he did not go down to the basement. He went straight home. For 3 days, Marcus stayed away from the piano. He told himself it was better this way. Playing again had been a mistake. It had opened old wounds, reminded him of things he needed to forget. But on Thursday evening, he found himself standing at the top of the basement stairs again. His feet had carried him there without his permission. The pull was too strong. He needed to play. It was like a hunger he could not ignore. Marcus went downstairs. He sat at the piano. He played for an hour, losing himself in the music. When he came back upstairs, he nearly collided with Derek in the hallway. "Oh, there he is," Derek said with a smirk. The piano man himself. Marcus tried to walk past him, but Derek stepped in his way. "Hey, I heard you can really play," Derek said. His tone was mocking. "Why do not you play something for us sometime? We would love to hear it." "I would rather not," Marcus said quietly. "Come on, do not be shy," Derek persisted. "I bet you are really good. Helen said you were amazing, although between you and me I think she might have been exaggerating." 2 other young staff members had joined them now, sensing entertainment. "Yeah, Marcus, play something for us," Jessica urged, barely hiding her grin. "I said no thank you," Marcus repeated. He tried to leave, but they had formed a small circle around him. "What is wrong? Stage fright?" Derek laughed. "We are not asking for a concert. Just play one song. One little song on that old piano down there. That piano can barely make noise anyway," Tom added. "Half the keys are broken." "Which is perfect for Marcus's skill level," Derek said. The others snickered. Marcus felt his hands trembling. Not from fear, from anger, from humiliation. "Excuse me," he said firmly. "I need to leave." This time they stepped aside. But as he walked away, he heard Derek say loudly, "Guess he is too shy." Or maybe Helen was completely wrong about his playing. More laughter followed him down the hallway. That night, Marcus sat in his apartment feeling worse than he had felt in years. The joy he had rediscovered was being poisoned by their mockery. Why had he ever touched that piano? Why had he let himself hope that music could be part of his life again? The next day at work, Marcus kept to himself even more than usual. He worked quickly and efficiently, trying to be invisible. At lunch, he ate in his car instead of the break room. But he could not avoid everyone forever. In the afternoon, he was mopping the hallway near the gym when he overheard Derek talking to a group of teenagers from the after-school program. "You guys know Marcus, the janitor?" Derek was saying. "Yeah," one of the kids replied. "Did you know he thinks he can play piano?" Derek said with exaggerated amazement. The teenagers looked confused. "So? Lots of people play piano." "No, you do not understand," Derek continued. "He thinks he is really good. Like concert pianist good, but he is just an old janitor who has probably never even seen a real piano before." One of the teenagers shrugged. "Maybe he is good. Why do you care?" "I do not care," Derek said defensively. "I just think it is funny. The old guy cleaning our floors thinks he is some kind of musical genius." Marcus stood frozen around the corner, mop in hand. He felt sick to his stomach. A voice interrupted Derek's monologue. "That is enough." It was Helen. She had appeared from her office, and her face was stern. "Derek, can I see you in my office, please?" Derek's smug expression faltered. "I was just joking around." "Now," Helen said firmly. Derek followed her, looking sullen. The teenagers scattered. Helen closed her office door behind them. Through the window, Marcus could see her talking to Derek. She looked angry. Derek looked defensive at first, then uncomfortable, then ashamed. The conversation lasted 15 minutes. When Derek came out, his face was red. He did not look at anyone. He went straight to the parking lot and left for the day. Marcus continued mopping, pretending he had not noticed anything. Later, Helen found Marcus emptying trash cans in the meeting rooms. "Marcus, can we talk?" He nodded, nervous. "I want to apologize," Helen said. "I should never have told anyone about your playing without your permission. It was private and I violated that privacy. I am truly sorry." "It is okay," Marcus said, though it was not. "No, it is not okay," Helen insisted. "And Derek's behavior was completely unacceptable. I have given him a formal warning. If he says anything else disrespectful to you or about you, there will be serious consequences." "You did not have to do that," Marcus said. "He was just joking." "Those were not jokes," Helen said firmly. "Those were insults. You deserve respect, Marcus. From everyone here." Marcus did not know what to say. "I also want you to know something," Helen continued. "What I heard you play was truly beautiful. I was not exaggerating. I was not being kind. It was genuinely, objectively excellent. You have real talent." Marcus looked down at his feet. "Thank you." "I know people have been unkind," Helen said gently, "but please do not let them take away your music." "Not again." After she left, Marcus stood alone in the meeting room. He thought about her words. "Do not let them take away your music." Not again. His grandmother had taught him that music was a gift, that it should be shared, not hidden. But sharing meant being vulnerable. It meant risking judgment, risking mockery, risking rejection. For 45 years, Marcus had protected himself by hiding his music, by pretending that part of him did not exist. Was he really ready to change that? Was he brave enough? Marcus did not know the answer. That evening, he stood at the top of the basement stairs for a long time. He could go down and play, or he could go home and try to forget the piano existed. Finally, he made his decision. He walked down the stairs. The piano waited for him in the corner. He sat down. He placed his hands on the keys. And he played. Not because anyone asked him to. Not because anyone expected it. Not to prove anything to Derek or Jessica or anyone else. He played for himself. For his grandmother. For the boy he used to be. He played because music was who he was. And no amount of mockery could change that, even if nobody else ever heard it. Even if nobody else ever understood, the music was his. And that was enough. Or so he thought. Marcus did not know that Helen had a plan. A plan that would force him out of the shadows. A plan that would put him in front of an audience. A plan that would change everything. She just needed the right opportunity. 2 weeks passed. Marcus continued his routine. Work during the day, play piano in the evening, go home, repeat. Derek had stopped making comments, at least when Marcus could hear them. The other staff members mostly ignored the whole situation. Life at the community center went back to normal. But Helen had not forgotten about Marcus's talent. She thought about it constantly. Such a gift should not be hidden in a basement. It should be shared with people. She just needed the right moment. That moment came on a Wednesday morning in late October. Helen was in her office reviewing the plans for the annual benefit concert. The concert was the center's biggest fundraising event of the year. It was scheduled for 3 weeks from now, on a Saturday evening. Every year they hired local musicians to perform. There would be a jazz band, some solo singers, maybe a dance performance. People bought tickets. Local businesses bought advertisements in the program. The money raised helped keep the center running. This year's concert was especially important. The center needed a new roof. The heating system was failing. They needed $20,000 in repairs just to keep the building safe and functional. Helen's phone rang. It was Marcus, the pianist they had hired for the concert. "Hello, Marcus," Helen said cheerfully, but it was not the pianist. It was his wife. "I am so sorry to call you like this," the woman said. She sounded upset. "But Marcus has fallen very ill. He has pneumonia and is in the hospital." Helen's heart sank. "Oh no, I am so sorry. Is he going to be okay?" "The doctors think so, but he will need several weeks to recover. He will not be able to perform at your concert. I am so sorry for the short notice." After Helen hung up, she sat at her desk in shock. The concert was in 3 weeks. How was she supposed to find a replacement pianist on such short notice? She started making phone calls. She called every musician she knew in the city, every music teacher, every church with a pianist, every music school. Everyone was either unavailable, too expensive, or not skilled enough for a benefit concert. By the end of the day, Helen was desperate. She sat in her office, staring at the concert program layout on her computer. There was a large photo of the pianist who had canceled. Now there would be a hole in the performance, a gap that needed to be filled. Then a thought struck her. Marcus. Marcus could play. She had heard him with her own ears. He was incredibly talented. But would he agree to perform? After the way he had been treated. After hiding his music for 45 years, it seemed impossible, but Helen had to try. She found Marcus in the gym, fixing a broken basketball hoop. "Marcus, can I talk to you for a minute?" He climbed down from the ladder. "Of course." They walked to her office. Helen closed the door and offered him a seat. "I have a problem," she began. "A big problem, and I think you might be the only person who can help me." Marcus looked concerned. "What is it?" Helen explained about the benefit concert, about the pianist who had canceled, about her desperate search for a replacement. "I have called everyone I know," she said. "Nobody is available, or they want more money than we can afford to pay." Marcus nodded sympathetically. "That is difficult. I hope you find someone." "I have found someone," Helen said. "You." Marcus's eyes went wide. "What? No, absolutely not." "Marcus, please just listen." "No," Marcus said, standing up. "I am sorry, Helen. I cannot do it." "Why not?" Helen asked gently. "Because I am a janitor, not a concert pianist," Marcus said. His voice was shaking. "I have not performed in front of people in over 40 years, and that piano downstairs is terribly out of tune. I could not possibly play a concert on it." "The concert would not be on that piano," Helen explained. "We rent a beautiful grand piano for the event. It is delivered 2 days before and professionally tuned." Marcus shook his head. "It does not matter, I cannot do it. I would embarrass myself. I would embarrass you. I would ruin your fundraiser." "You would not ruin anything," Helen insisted. "Marcus, I have heard you play. You are brilliant." "On an old piano in a basement when nobody is listening," Marcus argued. "That is completely different from performing on a stage in front of 200 people." "I understand you are scared," Helen said softly. "But this is important. We need this fundraiser to succeed. The center needs major repairs. If we do not raise enough money, we might have to close some programs, cut staff hours, maybe even close completely." Marcus sat back down. He had not thought about that. "How much do you need to raise, Guy?" he asked. "At least $20,000. Ideally 25. Marcus was silent for a long moment. He thought about the kids who came to the center after school, the seniors who played cards, the families who held birthday parties here. This place mattered to so many people, but still he could not imagine himself on that stage. "What if I am terrible?" he asked quietly. "What if I freeze up? What if I make mistakes?" "Then you make mistakes," Helen said with a smile. "Musicians make mistakes all the time. It is not about being perfect. It is about sharing something beautiful with people." "I do not know," Marcus said. His hands were trembling. "Will you at least think about it?" Helen asked. "The concert is 3 weeks away. That gives you time to practice, to prepare." Marcus stood up. "I will think about it, but I am not promising anything." For the next 3 days, Marcus was torn. Part of him wanted to help Helen and the center. Part of him was terrified at the thought of performing. He played, in the basement every evening, imagining an audience watching him. The thought made his hands sweat and his heart race. On Saturday morning, Marcus went to the center even though it was his day off. He wanted to see the main hall where the concert would take place. The hall was empty. Rows of chairs were stacked against the walls. The stage was bare except for some old sound equipment. Marcus stood at the back of the room imagining it full of people, all those eyes watching him, judging him. He turned to leave, ready to tell Helen his final answer was no. But then he saw something that made him stop. On the wall near the entrance was a bulletin board covered with photos. Pictures of kids laughing, seniors smiling, families celebrating together. In the center was a large photo from last year's benefit concert. The hall was packed. People were clapping. Everyone looked happy. Below the photo was a handwritten note. "Thanks to everyone who made last year's benefit concert a success. Your support keeps our doors open." Marcus stared at that note for a long time. His grandmother used to tell him that talent was a gift from God. And gifts were meant to be shared, not hidden away. He thought about all the years he had kept his music locked inside. All the joy he could have brought to people but did not, because he was too afraid. Maybe it was time to stop being afraid. Maybe it was time to honor his grandmother's memory by doing what she always taught him to do. Share the gift. Marcus found Helen in her office. "I will do it," he said. Helen looked up, surprised. "Really?" "Really," Marcus confirmed. "I will play at your concert." Helen jumped up and hugged him. Thank you so much." "But I have conditions," Marcus said nervously. "Anything. I need that piano tuned, the one in the basement. I want to practice on a piano that actually sounds right." "Done. I will call a tuner this afternoon. And I do not want anyone to know it is me performing until the night of the concert." Helen looked confused. "Why not?" "Because if Derek and the others know I am going to perform, they will make it worse. The comments, the jokes, I cannot handle that while I am trying to prepare." Helen understood. "Okay, we will keep it a secret. The program just says we have a special surprise performer." "One more thing," Marcus said. "I cannot promise I will be good. I have not performed in decades. I might be rusty. I might be terrible." "You will be wonderful," Helen said confidently. "I know you will." The next day, a piano tuner came to the center. His name was Robert, and he was an older man who had been tuning pianos for 40 years. Robert went down to the basement with his tools. He spent 3 hours working on the old piano. When he was finished, he found Helen. "I did the best I could," he said. "That piano has been badly neglected. Some of the strings are very old. The soundboard has cracks, but it will hold a tune for a few weeks at least." "How much do I owe you?" Helen asked. "Nothing," Robert said. "Consider it my donation to the center." That evening, Marcus went down to the basement as usual. He sat at the piano. He pressed a key. The sound that came out was clear, pure, beautiful. Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes. He played a scale. Every note was perfect, in tune, the way it was supposed to sound. He began to play, and for the first time in 45 years he heard his music the way it was meant to be heard. It was like coming home. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus practiced every single day, sometimes for 2 hours, sometimes for 4. He played until his fingers ached, until his back hurt from sitting, until he could barely see from tiredness. He practiced the pieces he would perform. He practiced them over and over until he could play them perfectly, even with his eyes closed. He chose 5 pieces for the concert: 2 classical pieces by Chopin and Debussy, 2 jazz standards that he arranged himself, and 1 original composition, the piece he had written for his grandmother all those years ago. Helen kept her promise. Nobody knew that Marcus would be performing. The staff assumed the center had found a replacement pianist somehow. The day of the concert arrived. Marcus woke up at 5 in the morning, even though the concert was not until 7 that evening. He could not sleep. His small apartment felt too quiet, too empty. His hands would not stop shaking. What had he been thinking? He was 62 years old, a janitor. He had no business performing in front of 200 people. It was not too late to back out. He could call Helen right now. Tell her he was sick. Tell her he could not do it. But then he thought about the center, about the kids and the families and the seniors, about Helen, who had trusted him. And he thought about his grandmother, about the boy he used to be, who dreamed of playing on big stages. Marcus got out of bed. He made coffee. He tried to eat breakfast but could only manage a few bites of toast. He spent the day trying to distract himself. He watched television without really seeing it. He tried to read a book but could not focus on the words. At 3 o'clock, he took a shower. He put on his best clothes. He only owned 1 suit, dark blue, that he wore to funerals and important occasions. It was old but clean. He added a white shirt and a simple tie. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked like a stranger, not like Marcus the janitor, like someone from another life. At 4 o'clock, Marcus drove to the center. The parking lot was already busy with people setting up for the event. He went to the back entrance, hoping to avoid everyone. But Helen was waiting for him. "There you are," she said with a warm smile. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Marcus admitted. "That is completely normal," Helen assured him. "Every performer gets nervous. It means you care." She led him to a small room behind the stage. It was normally used for storage, but she had cleaned it out and set up a chair and a mirror. "This is your dressing room," she said. "You can wait here until it is time to perform. I will come get you when the jazz band finishes their set." Marcus sat down in the chair. His legs felt weak. "The piano was delivered this morning," Helen continued. "A beautiful black grand piano. The tuner came and it sounds perfect. You are going to love it." She paused at the door. "Marcus, I want you to know something. No matter what happens tonight, I am proud of you. You are the bravest person I know." After she left, Marcus sat alone with his thoughts. He could hear sounds from the main hall. People arriving. Voices talking and laughing. Chairs being arranged. At 6:30, the concert began. Marcus could hear it through the walls. First, there were welcome speeches. Then the jazz band started playing. They were good. Very good. The audience clapped enthusiastically after each song. Marcus felt his anxiety growing. How could he possibly follow that? They were professional musicians, young and confident and polished. He was just an old janitor who used to play piano. At 7:15, there was a knock on the door. Helen poked her head in. "The band is almost done." "You are up in 10 minutes, Marcus stood up. His knees felt like water. "I do not think I can do this," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. Helen came into the room and took both his hands in hers. "Yes, you can," she said firmly. "You have practiced for 3 weeks. You are ready. And Marcus, remember, this is not about being perfect. This is about sharing your gift, about letting people see the real you." Marcus took a deep breath. "Okay," Helen smiled. "I will be in the audience front row. If you get nervous, just look at me. I will be right there." The jazz band finished their last song. The audience applauded loudly. Helen led Marcus to the side of the stage. He could see out into the hall now. It was completely full. Every seat was taken. People stood along the back wall. There had to be at least 250 people. Marcus felt dizzy. On the stage, he could see the grand piano. It was beautiful. The black surface gleamed under the stage lights. Helen walked onto the stage. The audience quieted down. "Thank you all so much for being here tonight," she said into the microphone. "Your support means everything to our community center. We have had wonderful performances so far, but now I want to introduce someone very special." Marcus stood in the wings, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. "For our final performance tonight, we have a surprise guest," Helen continued. "This is someone who has worked at our center for many years. Someone most of you see every day but might not really know. Someone who has a remarkable gift that he has kept hidden for far too long." In the audience, Derek sat with Jessica and some other staff members. They looked confused. Who could Helen be talking about? "Please welcome to the stage Marcus Williams," Helen said. For a moment there was confused silence, then hesitant applause. Derek's mouth fell open. "No way," he whispered. Marcus walked onto the stage. His legs felt like they might give out. The lights were bright in his eyes. He could barely see the audience. He heard whispers, saw people turning to each other with questioning looks. "The janitor? Playing piano? Is this some kind of joke?" Marcus walked to the piano. He sat down on the bench. He adjusted the height. He placed his hands on the keys. They were cool and smooth beneath his fingers. Perfect. He looked out at the audience, hundreds of faces staring at him. Some curious, some skeptical, some openly doubtful. He found Helen in the front row. She smiled at him and nodded. Marcus closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. And he began to play. The first piece was a nocturne by Chopin, soft and gentle at the beginning. His fingers found the keys naturally, like greeting old friends. The notes flowed out into the hall, clear and pure and beautiful. Within seconds, the whispers stopped. The room became completely silent. Marcus's fingers moved across the keys with grace and precision. The piece built in intensity, the melody weaving in and out like a conversation between two voices. In the audience, people sat frozen. This was not what they expected. This was not a janitor fumbling through a simple song. This was a master at work. Derek stared at the stage in shock. His mouth hung open. Next to him, Jessica had tears forming in her eyes, though she did not know why. Marcus played with his eyes closed. He was no longer in the community center. He was back in his grandmother's house. He was in Mrs. Patterson's studio. He was every age he had ever been when he sat at a piano. The music poured out of him. All the years of silence, all the buried dreams, all the pain and loss and love and hope. The nocturne reached its soft conclusion. The final notes hung in the air. For 3 seconds there was complete silence. Then the audience erupted. People jumped to their feet. The applause was thunderous. Some people were crying. Others were shaking their heads in amazement. Marcus opened his eyes. He looked out at the standing ovation. His vision was blurred with tears. He had not felt this feeling in 45 years. The feeling of connecting with an audience through music. The feeling of giving something beautiful to the world. He waited for the applause to die down. Then he spoke into the microphone, his voice quiet but clear. "Thank you. That piece was by Chopin. This next one is a little different." He began to play a jazz standard, Autumn Leaves, but with his own arrangement. It started slow and melancholy, then built into something lively and swinging. His fingers danced across the keys. He added runs and trills and improvisations that made the familiar melody sound fresh and exciting. People in the audience began tapping their feet, nodding their heads, smiling. This was not just technical skill. This was joy. Pure musical joy. When the piece ended, the applause was even louder. Marcus played his third piece, then his fourth. Each one was met with increasing enthusiasm. Finally, he reached his last piece, the one he was most nervous about. "This final piece is something I wrote a very long time ago," he said into the microphone. "I was 16 years old. I wrote it for my grandmother, who taught me to play. Her name was Sarah. She has been gone for 45 years, but I think about her every day." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "This is for her. This is Sarah's song." Marcus placed his hands on the keys. He closed his eyes, and he played the piece he had not performed for anyone since he was a teenager. It started soft and tender like a lullaby. The melody was simple but heartbreaking. You could feel the love in every note. Then it built. It grew stronger, more complex, The music swelled with power and passion. It was pain and hope and loss and love all woven together. Marcus played with everything he had. Every ounce of skill, every bit of emotion, every memory of his grandmother and the life they shared. The music filled the hall. It reached into every corner, into every heart. People in the audience were openly crying now. Even people who did not normally cry. Even people who thought they did not care about classical music or piano or any of it. Because this was not just music. This was a human soul laid bare. This was 45 years of silence finally finding its voice. The piece reached its climax. The piano sang with power and beauty. Then slowly it came back down. Softer, gentler, like a sunset fading to night. The final notes were barely a whisper. Marcus held his hands on the keys for a moment after the sound faded. Then he lifted them. Silence, complete, utter silence. For 5 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then someone in the back stood up and started clapping. Then someone else. And another. And another. Within seconds, the entire audience was on their feet. The applause was deafening. People were cheering, crying, hugging each other. Marcus could not sleep that night. He lay in bed replaying every moment of the concert in his mind. The nervousness, the fear. The moment his fingers touched the keys. The sound of the audience applauding. It felt like a dream. Like something that happened to someone else. At 2 a.m, his phone rang. It was Helen. "Marcus, I am sorry to call so late," she said. Her voice was strange. Excited but also shocked. "But you need to see this. Check your email. I just sent you a link." Marcus got out of bed and opened his laptop. He found Helen's email and clicked the link. It took him to a video on social media. The title read, "Janitor stuns audience with incredible piano performance." Marcus's heart started racing. Someone had recorded him. Someone had posted it online. He pressed play. There he was, walking onto the stage. He looked so small and nervous in the video. Then the music started. Even through the phone recording, you could hear the beauty of the playing. You could feel the emotion. Marcus looked at the view count. 2,000 views. The video had only been posted 3 hours ago. Who posted this? Marcus asked. A woman named Claire. She was in the audience. She posted it on her social media page and it started spreading. Helen explained. "Marcus, people are sharing it everywhere. The comments are incredible. Everyone is amazed." After they hung up, Marcus read through the comments. "I am crying. This is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. Who is this man? He should be playing in concert halls, not cleaning them. This proves you should never judge people. You never know what gifts they are hiding. I cannot stop watching this. I've played it 5 times already." Marcus closed the laptop. He did not know how to feel. Exposed? Proud? Scared? He went back to bed but did not sleep. By morning, the video had 50,000 views. By afternoon, 500,000. By evening, 2 million. Marcus's phone would not stop ringing. Helen called. People from the center called. Even his neighbors called, saying they had seen him online. A local news station reached out. They wanted to interview him. Then another station. Then a national morning show. Marcus said no to all of them. He was not ready for that. He just wanted things to go back to normal. But things would never be normal again. On Monday morning, Marcus went to work as usual. But when he arrived at the community center, there were news vans in the parking lot. Reporters rushed toward him with cameras and microphones. "Marcus Williams, can we ask you a few questions? How does it feel to become an overnight sensation? What made you decide to finally share your talent?" Marcus pushed through the crowd without answering. He went inside the building and locked the door behind him. Helen found him in the janitor's closet, sitting on a bucket with his head in his hands. "I know this is overwhelming," she said gently. "But Marcus, this is a good thing. People want to hear your story. They want to hear your music." "I am a janitor," Marcus said. "I clean floors. I do not do interviews. I do not do television." "Maybe it is time to stop thinking of yourself as just a janitor," Helen suggested. "You are a musician, Marcus. You always have been." That afternoon, the video reached 10 million views. It was trending on every social media platform. News articles were being written about the janitor pianist and the hidden musical genius. Music blogs analyzed his technique. Classical music experts called his playing extraordinary and world-class. A famous concert pianist named David Chen posted, This man has more musicality in one performance than most trained pianists achieve in a lifetime. Someone please give him a recording contract. Marcus tried to ignore all of it. He went about his work cleaning and organizing. But everywhere he went in the center, people stopped him to congratulate him, to tell him how moved they were by his performance. Even Derek approached him in the hallway. "Marcus, I owe you an apology," Derek said. His face was red with embarrassment. "I said terrible things about you. I laughed at you. I was wrong. Completely wrong. You are incredibly talented, and I am sorry for being such a jerk." Marcus looked at the young man. He could see genuine remorse in his eyes. "It is okay," Marcus said quietly. "I forgive you." Derek looked relieved. "For what it is worth, watching you perform changed something in me. It made me realize how quick I am to judge people, how I miss seeing the real person because I make assumptions. Thank you for that lesson." After Derek left, Marcus felt something shift inside him. Maybe good could come from all this attention. Maybe his story could help people see others differently, see themselves differently. On Wednesday, Marcus received an email that changed everything. It was from Lincoln Center in New York City, one of the most prestigious concert halls in the world. "Dear Mr. Williams," it read, "we were moved by your performance and would like to invite you to play at our Summer Jazz Festival next June. This is a paid performance. We would cover all your travel and accommodation expenses. Please let us know if you would be interested." Marcus stared at the email for a long time. Lincoln Center, the place he had dreamed about as a boy, the place he thought he would never be good enough to play, and they were inviting him. He called Helen immediately. "What should I do?" he asked. "What do you want to do?" She replied. Marcus thought about it. Did he want to perform again? Did he want to pursue music after all these years? Yes, he did. "I want to say yes," he told Helen. "But I am scared. What if that performance at the center was just luck? What if I cannot do it again?" "Then you practice," Helen said simply. "You prepare. You work hard just like you did for our concert. Marcus, opportunities like this do not come along every day, especially not at our age. If you say no, you will regret it for the rest of your life." She was right. He knew she was right. Marcus wrote back to Lincoln Center and accepted the invitation. Over the next few days, more opportunities arrived. A music school in Chicago wanted him to give a master class. A jazz club in Boston invited him to perform. A documentary filmmaker wanted to make a film about his life. The most surprising email came from Juilliard, the school he had dreamed of attending as a teenager. They wanted to fly him to New York for a special event honoring musicians who had overcome adversity. They wanted to hear his story. They wanted him to play. Marcus said yes to that too, but the most important email came from a record label in Nashville. "We would like to offer you a recording contract," it said. "We want to produce an album of your original compositions and classical interpretations. We believe your story and your music will resonate with millions of people." A recording contract. At 62 years old, Marcus had to read the email 3 times to believe it was real. He called Helen again. "They want me to make an album." "Of course they do," Helen said. She sounded like she was smiling. "I told you that you were special." "But I have a job," Marcus said. "I have responsibilities here at the center." "Marcus, listen to me very carefully," Helen said. "You have cleaned our floors for 12 years. You have been the best employee we ever had. But this is your chance to do what you were always meant to do. You have to take it." "But what about the center? What about my work here?" "We will find another janitor," Helen said gently. "We will never find another you. Go, follow your music. We will all be cheering for you." That evening, Marcus sat in the basement with the old piano, the piano that had changed his life, the piano that had given him back his music. He played softly, thinking about everything that had happened in the past month. One performance, one video, and his entire world had transformed. He thought about his grandmother. What would she say if she could see him now? He knew exactly what she would say. She would tell him that this was God's plan all along, that his talent was never meant to be hidden, that everything he had been through, all the pain and loss, had prepared him for this moment. Marcus made his decision. The next morning he went to Helen's office and gave his 2 weeks' notice. "I am going to do it," he said. "I am going to be a musician." Helen hugged him tight. "I am so proud of you." Word spread quickly through the center. The janitor was leaving to become a professional pianist. The staff threw him a surprise party on his last day. Even Derek helped organize it. They had cake and music and speeches. People told stories about Marcus, about his kindness, his quiet dedication, how he always had a smile for everyone. Then Derek stood up to speak. "I want to say something," Derek began. His voice was shaky. "When I first heard that Marcus could play piano, I laughed. I made fun of him. I was cruel." He looked directly at Marcus. "I judged you based on your job title instead of who you really are. You taught me the most important lesson I have ever learned. Never assume you know someone's story. Never underestimate what people are capable of. Never let pride blind you to the beauty around you." Derek paused, wiping his eyes. "You are not just a great musician, Marcus. You are a great man. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for forgiving me. And thank you for showing all of us what courage looks like." The room erupted in applause. Marcus stood up. He was not good at speeches, but he wanted to say something. "This place gave me a home when I needed one," he said. "You all gave me purpose. I came here 12 years ago as a lost man who had given up on his dreams. I am leaving as someone who believes in second chances." He looked around the room at all the faces. "Never give up on what makes you who you are. Never bury your gifts. Never think it is too late. I am 62 years old and my life is just beginning." More applause. More tears. That night, Marcus went down to the basement one last time. He sat at the old piano, the piano that had been forgotten and neglected, just like he had been. He played Sarah's song one more time. For the piano, for the center, for the boy he used to be and the man he had become. When he finished, he stood up and covered the keys gently. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he walked upstairs and out the door, ready to begin his new life. The video of his performance continued to spread. By the end of the month, it had been viewed over 50 million times. It had been shared on news programs around the world. People called it inspiring, proof that talent does not expire, evidence that it is never too late to chase your dreams. Marcus became a symbol of hope for anyone who had ever given up on themselves, for anyone who thought their best years were behind them, for anyone who had buried their gifts because life got in the way. Letters poured in from around the world, from other musicians who had quit, from artists who had stopped creating, from people who had forgotten who they were meant to be. They all said the same thing. "Thank you for reminding me that it is not too late." Marcus read every single letter, and he answered as many as he could, because he understood. He had been there. He had spent 45 years believing his music was gone forever. But music never dies. It just waits, waiting for the right moment, the right piano, the right courage. And when that moment comes, all you have to do is sit down and play. 6 months later, Marcus stood backstage at Lincoln Center in New York City. His hands were shaking just like they had before the community center concert. But this time it was different. This time he was not just a janitor surprising a local audience. He was a recognized musician about to perform at one of the most famous concert halls in the world. The Summer Jazz Festival was sold out. 2,000 people filled the seats. Music critics from major newspapers were in attendance. The performance would be streamed live online to viewers around the world. Marcus wore a new suit, black and elegant. Helen had insisted on buying it for him as a gift. She had flown to New York to watch him perform. She sat in the third row, her face beaming with pride. Also in the audience was Mrs. Patterson, his childhood piano teacher. She was 89 years old now, frail but sharp as ever. When Marcus had called to invite her, she had cried on the phone. "I always knew you were special," she had said. "I just wish Sarah could see you now." A stage manager approached Marcus. "2 minutes, Mr. Williams." Marcus took a deep breath. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. The years of silence, the old piano in the basement, the choice to be brave instead of safe. He walked onto the stage. The audience applauded warmly. Many of them had seen the viral video. They knew his story. They knew what this moment meant. Marcus sat at the beautiful grand piano. He adjusted the bench. He looked out at the sea of faces, and he began to play. He opened with Sarah's song, the piece that had touched so many hearts in the viral video. But this time, on a perfect instrument in perfect acoustics, the music soared even higher. The audience sat in complete silence, absorbed in every note. Marcus played for 70 minutes. Classical pieces, jazz standards, his own original compositions. Each piece flowed into the next, telling a story without words. When he finished, the standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. People threw flowers onto the stage. Critics scribbled frantically in their notebooks. The next morning, the reviews were incredible. The New York Times wrote, "Marcus Williams proves that genius cannot be contained." His performance was not just technically brilliant, but emotionally devastating. This is what music is meant to be. The Washington Post said, "In a world of manufactured celebrities, Marcus Williams is the real thing. A true artist who has lived his music, not just played it." But Marcus's favorite review came from a small blog written by a music student. "Watching Marcus Williams perform gave me hope," it said. "I almost quit music school last year because I thought I was not good enough. But if Marcus can reclaim his music after 45 years, then I can keep going for one more day. Thank you, Marcus, for not giving up. It helps the rest of us not give up too." The success of the Lincoln Center performance opened even more doors. Marcus was invited to perform at the Kennedy Center in Washington, at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, at the Royal Albert Hall in London. He said yes to some and no to others. He was learning to balance opportunity with rest, success with sanity, fame with staying true to himself. The record label kept their promise. Marcus spent 3 months in Nashville recording his first album. He called it Never Too Late. The album featured his original compositions alongside his arrangements of classical and jazz pieces. The final track was Sarah's Song, recorded in one perfect take. When the album was released, it went straight to #1 on the classical charts. It crossed over to the jazz charts. It even appeared on the mainstream charts, something almost unheard of for a classical piano album. Music from Never Too Late was used in movies and television shows. It was played on radio stations. It was streamed millions of times. Marcus started receiving royalty checks, more money than he had ever seen in his life, more money than he had made in 10 years of cleaning floors. He could have bought a big house, an expensive car, all the luxuries he had never been able to afford. Instead, he did something else. He established a foundation called the Sarah Williams Music Fund. It provided free piano lessons and instruments to children from low-income families. Children like he had been. "Every child with talent deserves a chance," Marcus said at the foundation's launch. "Money should never be the reason a gift goes undeveloped." The foundation gave out 50 scholarships in its first year. By the second year, 200. Schools and community centers across the country applied for grants to start music programs. Marcus also went back to the community center where his journey had restarted. He donated money for the new roof and heating system they needed. Then he donated more for a complete renovation of the music room. And he made one special request. "I want you to keep the old piano," he told Helen, the one from the basement. "Fix it up, tune it, put it somewhere special." The piano was restored by the best craftsmen. It was placed in the center's main hall with a plaque that read, "This piano belonged to Marcus Williams. It reminds us that forgotten things can be beautiful again, that it is never too late to find your music." Children at the center took turns playing it. Some were talented. Some were beginners. It did not matter. The piano welcomed them all. Marcus visited the center often. He taught free piano classes for kids and adults. He encouraged people to pursue their passions no matter how impossible they seemed. One afternoon, a shy 10-year-old girl came to his class. Her name was Emma. She was from a poor family and had never touched a piano before. Marcus showed her how to place her hands on the keys, how to make her first sounds. Emma's face lit up with joy, the same joy Marcus had felt as a boy when his grandmother first taught him. "Am I doing it right?" Emma asked nervously. "You are doing it perfectly," Marcus said with a smile. "Keep going. The music is inside you. You just have to let it out." As he watched Emma play her first simple melody, Marcus felt tears in his eyes. This was why he had been given a second chance, not just to perform on big stages, not just to make albums, but to pass the gift forward, to help others find their music. Marcus also reconnected with old friends from his childhood town in Mississippi, people he had not seen in 40 years. They had all watched the viral video. They remembered the talented boy he had been. He went back to visit. The town had not changed much. It was still small and quiet. His grandmother's old house was still standing, though other people lived there now. Marcus stood outside the house for a long time, remembering. The owners came out and recognized him from the news. "Would you like to come in?" they asked. Marcus walked through the rooms. Everything was different, but the memories were still there. He could almost hear his grandmother's voice, almost smell her cooking. He stood in the spot where the piano used to be. "She would be so proud of you," the homeowner said softly. "I hope so," Marcus whispered. Before leaving town, Marcus organized a free concert at the church. The same church where Mrs. Patterson had first heard him play as a 7-year-old boy. The whole town came. People filled every pew and stood along the walls. Some had known him as a child. Others only knew him from the viral video. Marcus played for 2 hours. He played hymns that his grandmother used to love. He played songs he had created as a teenager. He played his newest compositions. When he finished, people lined up to hug him, to thank him, to tell him how much his music meant to them. An elderly woman approached, tears streaming down her face. "I knew your grandmother, Sarah," she said. "We were friends. She talked about you all the time, about how talented you were, about the dreams she had for you." The woman took Marcus's hands. "When she got sick and you had to give up music, it broke her heart. But she never blamed you. She understood. And she never stopped believing that someday, somehow, you would play again." "She never told me that," Marcus said, his voice choked with emotion. "She did not want to burden you with guilt," the woman explained. "But I saw her 1 week before she died. She told me, 'My Marcus will play again someday, I know it. His music is too strong to stay silent forever.'" Marcus could barely breathe. "She said that?" "She did. And she was right. She is watching you now, Marcus, and she is so, so proud." That night, alone in a hotel room in his hometown, Marcus cried harder than he had cried since his grandmother died. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of healing, of completion, of coming full circle. Over the next year, Marcus continued to perform, record, and teach. He became one of the most respected musicians in the world, not just for his talent, but for his story, for proving that dreams do not have expiration dates. He appeared on talk shows and news programs. He gave speeches at universities and conferences. He used his platform to encourage people to never give up on themselves. "I spent 45 years believing my music was dead," he would tell audiences. "I was wrong. Music never dies. It just waits for you to be ready, for you to be brave, for you to choose yourself." People from all walks of life reached out to him. A 68-year-old woman who started painting again after 30 years. A 55-year-old man who went back to school to become a teacher. A 70-year-old who wrote and published her first novel. They all said Marcus had inspired them, had shown them it was not too late. On the 1-year anniversary of the viral video, Marcus gave a special performance back at the community center, the place where it all began. The event was invitation only. Staff members, volunteers, children from the programs, and regular visitors, the people who had known Marcus before he was famous. Helen introduced him. 1 year ago, Marcus walked onto our stage as our janitor. Tonight he returns as our friend, our inspiration, our reminder that we should never judge people by their job titles or their age or their circumstances. Marcus played for an hour. Then he invited children from his piano classes to join him on stage. Together they played simple songs. The music was not perfect, but it was joyful. Derek was in the audience. He had changed a lot in the past year. He was less arrogant, more thoughtful, more willing to see the value in every person. After the concert, Derek approached Marcus. "I have learned so much from watching you," Derek said. "Not just about music, about life, about not making assumptions, about giving people chances. You changed me, Marcus." "Thank you." Marcus put his hand on Derek's shoulder. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them. You did that. I am proud of you." As the evening ended and people said their goodbyes, Marcus sat alone at the old piano in the main hall. The piano that had started everything. He played softly just for himself. No audience, no cameras, no pressure. Just a man and a piano and the music that had always lived inside him. Helen came and sat next to him on the bench. "Any regrets?" she asked. Marcus thought about it. About the 45 years he lost. About the dreams that were delayed. About all the music that was never heard. "No," he said finally. "No regrets. Because everything led me here. To this moment. To this life. I am exactly where I am supposed to be." "What is next?" Helen asked. Marcus smiled. More music. More teaching. More living. I have 62 years to make up for. I better get started. They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Marcus began to play again. A new composition he was working on. Something hopeful and bright. Something that looked forward instead of back. Because that is what second chances are for. Not to fix the past, but to create a better future. Marcus had learned that the hard way. But he had learned it. And now every day, through his music and his teaching and his story, he helped others learn it too. The music never ends. It just changes form. It grows, it adapts, it waits. And when you are finally ready to listen, to play, to share it with the world, it comes rushing back like an old friend you thought you had lost forever. Marcus Williams, the janitor who became a concert pianist at 62, proved that to millions of people. But more importantly, he proved it to himself. And that made all the difference.